Thing I thought was coolest was Gemini Omni, which is Google's new model for creating video content and
Mhm.
editing video content. So Omni right now is only available to paid Gemini users, but you can be on the cheapest paid plan, which is like $7 a month or something, and still use Omni. So
Yeah.
I went in today and I have a dog called Munchie. This is like if you watched the our episode about video creation tools
Mhm.
in the past, Google's answer to those tools.
Mhm.
And what I did here is I created a character for Munchie, who's my dog. I based it on a bunch of pictures that I had of him. I fed it
Mhm.
to this, and it created the model. So this is what it thinks Munchie is.
And just as a reminder, like the characters is a really cool capability, and we saw a similar feature in like Artlist and some other platforms have some of those things. But like it allows you to insert a a recurring character in different scenes without it kind of reimagining
Yeah.
what you described each time.
And a really neat usability tip for you all is if you're in Flow and you hit
Mhm.
the @ symbol, it lets you reference things. So I
Mhm.
could just hit app and then start typing Munchie, and then I have it referenced right there. And you can see the
Yep.
little screenshot that it recognizes that I'm talking about the character. So I could say, make a video of, and then the @ symbol, Munchie, and then write whatever the video is that I wanted to create. But the thing that I thought was really useful here was to compare Omni, the new model, to the most recent model, which was VEO 3.1.
Mhm.
So I did that, and this one is VEO 3.1.
Not only does Munchie look a little different, Munchie's a interesting climber.
Yeah, like he climbs in this really weird way that doesn't. One of the claims of Google Omni is that it has a better understanding of the world and
Yeah.
physics and how things actually work. You can see that like this climbing here, it's just weird. It
Yeah.
like weird is the best way to describe it. And then when the dog is like biting at the toaster, it's clipping through solid objects,
Yeah.
which is like this is still impressive when you think about
Well,
it. But
I did want to say, I was like, I don't want to completely like, destroy VO3 because I think we lose perspective on like how far we've come, right?
yeah,
Like it's still insane that it creates these like handheld movements, this very realistic scene. Other than the climbing, a dog that looks like a dog. um, but yeah, like I feel like it used to be like if you were going to create like a kind of a scene or a narrative, you had to create like these short little clips, keep refining them, be like have super tight stuff, and then assemble it.
yeah.
I feel like some of that could change, make our
Yes,
lives a little
and
easier.
that's the other big thing here is this is one shot. Keep that in
Yeah,
mind. It was one
yeah,
solid shot. I didn't tell it anything about shots, so that's the decision it made. You can see my prompt here. I said, make a video of Munchie climbing up on the kitchen counter to get some toast from the toaster. Use this reference image of the kitchen. And then I included Munchie as a character and an image from the kitchen. And then just as a reference, this is an actual Munchie.
yeah.
So hot.
So you can kind of see him.
Hi.
I
Do you
love
want to
that
go for a
dog.
walk? Should we go for a walk around the block? Yeah.
Okay, so this is what VEO produced. Doesn't really look like Munchie at all. Weird physics, whatever. This is the first video from uh, Omni. So that is
I'm,
just like objectively a better result from that same exact prompt, just a
yeah.
different model. A better understanding of physics and space, like when you look at the way it interacts with the world, multiple shots. Now there's like a little bit of consistency issue here where in this shot,
There's a lack of continuity, but
yeah,
you could probably prompt that.
yeah. I the prompt I gave it was two sentences. Yeah, and like we always say, if you give a vague prompt, you're gonna get a unspecific response. You're
Yeah.
gonna get something with a lot of creativity, and sometimes that creativity leads to issues. But much better. I did another version just to make sure that this wasn't a fluke.
Yeah.
that again is pretty darn good. Pretty realistic. Now I could prompt to make it better if I wanted to. Um, VEO is really cool about doing that,
Yeah.
but just like one-shotting these 2 videos, it's just incredibly impressive.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and I think I feel like as with any of the tools that we've talked about on the show, but especially with the video tools and the design tools, I feel like or I should say like the visual tools, I feel like my assessment is like, A, is this usable? Like looking at that VO one, it's like I would throw that out. Like you can't you can't use that clip where the dog like oddly climbs the cabinet, right?
yeah.
But if it is usable, like looking at Omni, it's also like how close does this get me to a finished product? Like how much work do I have to manually do afterwards? The fact that they're actually assembling uh, uh, a narrative from multiple shots in this scene, even adding some music underneath it, adding
Mhm.
sound effects when he crunches the toast, I'm so much closer to something that I am ready to put out there, and I don't have to go, okay, cool, it generated these things. Now I got to spend hours like tweaking, editing, whatever. It's pretty impressive. It's a pretty big leap.
Yes, yeah. While I'm waiting for this to jump, one of the things, or to finish, one of the things that Google talked about was updates to Gemini itself. And this
Mhm,
is Gemini. If you've used Gemini before, you could tell that the look is already different.
mhm.
Um, it looks fine. I'm a designer. I think like it looks fine, whatever. But they have released a new model in Gemini as well called Gemini 3.5 Flash, which is supposed to be, among other things, much, much faster than previous models. And they also say comparable models
Mhm,
from other companies. I haven't really tested that yet, but just looking at the benchmarks of what they're saying is true, it's pretty darn fast. But
mhm,
the other nice thing about this is it is supposed to be much more of a multimodal model than before. So it can understand and produce not just text, but images, video, even potentially 3D experiences. And one of the neat things here, I'm going to see if I can get it to work here, is how does a black hole work? They Gemini has started adding something. I am actually not sure if uh, this is finished yet, but we've already seen this in Anthropic's Claude and in ChatGPT. You can see this actually in Aweber's ChatGPT app. When you ask for certain types of information or from information from connected apps, it won't just return text and images, it'll actually return user interfaces that you can play with. So in the case of Aweber, what that would be like is if I asked it to uh, in ChatGPT right now, if you ask it to give you information about a subscriber, it'll show you the information about that person on your email list, as well as some graphs and things, and interactive recent emails that you can click
mhm.
into to see more information about them. But that didn't work. Let me see. Show me an interactive example of how black holes work. This might not be in Gemini yet, but this was part of the demo that was pretty interesting to me. Okay, so it is generating an interactive visual, and it's doing this on the fly. Like it doesn't have a set of a bunch of
Yeah.
different visuals it can pull. It's actually writing code or displaying code to to illustrate whatever concept that it's going to illustrate for me. Um, and while this is waiting, I'm going to jump back over here. Oh, actually, no, that's ready.
That wasn't bad.
Yeah. Well, heck, it's not ready. I'm going to jump back over into Flow, and it's given me a new version. So, like, this was the original version. Let's check it out. So there's that dog. I gave it kind of a vague thing. I told it to shorten the snout and make the dog smaller. Doesn't look like it to start, but let's see. That looks like basically the same video. So that did not
Yeah.
work.
I found
Uh,
that I found that too. I was playing with the silly like Google Doodle stinger for the show today, and I tried to prompt changes several times, like, very explicitly. The first version it created, it added this like kids cheering. And I was just like, no, that's weird. Like, we don't need that in there. And I very explicitly was like, remove the music and the cheering sounds. And it just 3 or 4 times it would give me a new version that was identical and nothing had changed. So I think there's definitely a little bit of like growing pains. Like some of that, maybe prompting is not being retained in Flow with Omni. But obviously like that, it's only going to continue to improve. And if this is where it's starting, I think it's a much stronger model.
Yes. Did this one have the music? I saw a question about suppressing the music.
I do think, did it put the toast in the slot?
Okay. So I'm going to say, remove the music, but leave the other sounds. This was a question from Successful Service Business.
Yeah.
And the reason for this was if you're producing multiple clips, you don't want just random music that's going to cut after every clip.
Yeah. And if Chris has the same experience here where I was unable to prompt it after the initial generation to remove something, I wonder if you might have more success in being explicit in your initial prompt, like add sound effects, do not add any music.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. Okay, I'm going to try it. We'll kick that off. And now back over here, this is again just in Gemini. It built this on the fly, and it's built something where I can actually tweak the size of the mass of the black hole, and then the actual exercise is launching a little prompt or a probe from here and seeing how the black hole affects its movement. So we'll launch that probe, and it shows you how,
given the mass angle.
Yeah. So given the mass of the black hole. Oh, and it even changes on the fly.
In real time.
So cool. Yeah, so that's neat. I mean, it's a neat thing because what it speaks to is a future where you can just use one of these apps like Gemini or ChatGPT or Claude and just ask it or tell it that you want it to do something in a program that you use. Like, hey, I want to see my schedule for the next week, so I can plan a meeting, and it could show you an actual interactive calendar right then and there without you having to go to a calendar and maybe use a chat there. You'll just be able to do more and more of your whole internet experience through these apps.
Yeah. Successful Service Businesses also asked, how do you get into Omni from ChatGPT? This is in Gemini or Google Flow rather. Sorry.
Yes. Yeah. So you can't through ChatGPT use Google Flow, Gemini Flow. Flow is a Google model that you could use through the API if you built an app of your own. But when it comes to the actual chat app on your phone or on your computer that uses it, it's through Gemini, Google's product. And then OpenAI has their own API or their own models for generating things. They have Sonnet and Opus for generating text and sometimes images. And Claude does not do, or Anthropic does not do image generation, although it can understand images as an input.
Yeah.
Let's see. Before I hand it back off to you, Jesse, let's see. It says that it gave me a new version here. So let's see. Did it actually? Oops. What did I just do? So here we are. Let's see. No, it didn't remove the music.
No. But I do wonder if like being more explicit up front on the initial generation to never.
But then what's the point of having the edit prompt box if it doesn't respect any of your prompts?
That's one of the things. That was one of the first experiences I had was like, okay, interesting animation of this thing that I gave it. But then iterating became frustrating immediately.
Yeah.
because it just wasn't doing the explicit thing that I asked. So yeah, I mean, like, we'll have to see improvement there for it to be truly useful, because if you have to one shot every single thing and live with what it gives you, that's going to be costly in terms of tokens and time. Definitely needs to get better at retaining iteration for sure. But I'll be honest with you, like that's similar to what some of the early, like, I felt with some of the early Gemini image creation stuff. Iterating was maybe one of its weaker points.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I think Flow is currently, or the Omni model, Flow is available to all Google AI users, but the Omni video creation model in Flow, I believe, is only available right now to Pro and Ultra plans.
I'm on whatever the cheapest one is.
Plus?
Yeah.
Oh, so maybe it's available to Plus as well. I may be wrong. I think they mentioned Pro and Ultra, but maybe it's more broadly available than I realized.
Yeah.
Welcome Where said we're using Gemini through our company Google Workspace. I tried out the video production, but was limited to only 3 per day, limited to 10 seconds with a Pro account. Did you run up against any generation limitations?
I didn't, but I haven't been really pushing it too hard. These are all 6-second clips, so they're also fairly small.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm honestly not sure, and I wonder if that's dependent on your workspace as well, workspace settings or plans. All right, cool.
Last one.
Oh,
I
yeah.
I asked it to add a hat to the dog and remove the audio. I asked it to add the hat so I could make sure that it
was
actually made the
actually
change.
iterating. Yeah.
So let's see. There's the hat, but the music is still there. Oh, God. That hat looks cute though.
Cool beanie though,
Nice job. All right, cool.
That'll be interesting, and I think it's worth, in a little while, like whether it's in a month or whatever it is, like, we should probably revisit Omni and Flow and compare it to maybe some of the other things available, see if it's gotten better at some of those things, and maybe even just like a practical use case of like, hey, let's make a 30-second ad for this business type or something and see if it can really pull it off.
Yeah, that's
but definitely promising. Definitely promising. I don't know. The iteration makes me question if it's like immediately usable, like practically.
Yeah, especially compared to some of the other video tools that you demoed just a couple of weeks ago. Flow is cool. It seems like it's fun to play with. I'm not sure I would rely on it as part of your like production process.
Well, and that's the thing too, is like, if you're choosing to use Flow, you're choosing it because of the platform and the platform's capabilities, not necessarily the model that it's using for video creation. Because like, we looked at Artlist Studio, we looked at several other video tools, and most of them have access to VEO, Google previous.
I'm sure they have Omni.
And I'm sure if they don't already, they will have access to Omni. So if and with some of those, like Artlist, you also have access to other video creation models outside of Google's. I don't know if that's the case in Flow. Is it just, do they only give access to their own video models?
Here, let's take a look. Oh, it looks like I am out of credits for the day, but the only I remember seeing were VEO and Omni. That's what's there.
Yeah.
Not surprising. It's a Google product. They're using it to showcase their models.
So again, unless like their studio platform is like, or Flow is that much superior, I don't know. There's a part of me that's like a product like Artlist or one of those other ones that has access to Google models for creation, as well as Kling and all these other ones. I don't know. I'd probably still lean that way until they were just, heads and tails above.
Yeah, same.